Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turf's Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone show this evening.
Well, pleasant afternoon and good evening to everybody. Good morning, depending where you are in this wonderful world. Hope everybody's having a good time and a safe time. And I'm having a good time because we're doing the Water Zone. And I'm very happy to have my two lovely ladies on who are the women of water, Ms. Toro and Ms. Chris Boston. So welcome to the show and welcome, ladies. How are you today?
I'm fantastic, but the thing I want to talk about today, Chris, is the King article about Potter Valley Dam. That thing was, I mean, it set my heart on fire. I loved it so much. Just like a different way of looking at dams. I know. What's the damn issue with me, anyways? Yeah. So tell me more about that and what you've heard and all of that.
Oh, well, you're going to have Edward Ring on here, coming up. Yeah, there's a lot of texture is the word that I would use in the Potter Valley project and dam removals in general. I think the Klamath Dam removal was in some aspects easier because no one was losing a water supply. Agriculture was not getting affected. All those dams were all hydropower dams and not very good ones. And the issues that they had were ones that could be solved with money, pretty much. It's always a drag when you have a property around a reservoir and then they decide to drain the reservoir. So that always affects things, and I think that was part of the largest issue I think with the Klamath dams in terms of impacts. Potter Valley Dam is a much different situation because it is going to be impacting a water supply. They used that project to pull over water from another basin, and it goes in and eventually gets down to Sonoma County, and Sonoma needs that water, but they sort of come up with this plan, the two basin alternative, and they seem to feel that they can figure out how to get along with it, along without that water, in some different sort of scheme that they have. But there's a lot of people, even in the Russian, River, Sonoma County area, that aren't exactly keen on that idea. And then there's also, the Lake Pillsbury, which is behind Scott Dam, which would be drained when they take out the dam. And that reservoir has a lot of value for recreation and for firefighting, because they can pull water out of it. So, one thing that Edward Ring points out is that there are all these other sort of aspects to it. And, is it a culture war thing? That seems to be the buzzword these days.
Of course it is.
Culture war. But I mean, all these things can be thought of differently. Like if you go to the Delta Tunnel issue, people like to, say, oh, environmental justice. They say, the people in the Delta say, well, if you build that tunnel, that's, an environmental injustice to us because, we should have that water here. Well, you could also say, if you're in the Central Valley and you're a farm worker, you could also say, hey, well, it's environmental justice because now you're depriving us of our water and our work and what we need to live, here. And the people down in Southern California could also, there's an environmental justice aspect to that because if you take all the water out of Southern California, then the people who have means will leave. There'll be a dry and dusty place. So everyone that can will get out, and everyone that can't will be stuck there, and we'll have this really large urban slum. So, so pick your flavor of environmental justice, because you can spread that any way you want. And so, correctly, he points out, you can spread this one that way too. And he goes through with, a lot of data and links and stuff, because he always shows you his work. And it's interesting. It's a whole different take on this. And then he gets into dredging reservoirs and stuff. So he really goes far into this. But I mean, it's definitely a different take, and it's worth considering the other side. Crazy stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. And I just think it's fascinating the Thule deer sort of turn left in the environmental world, where it really is the thing that I loved about the article was how much it was about balance, and nobody always wins. Like, it's not like the environment wins and people lose. It's like, no matter what you do, there's consequences. And so really being educated about what those consequences are is critical to making the right decision. And a lot of times, most people, me included, don't want to take the time to really get educated about that in a way that I should be making the decision, which is why I will leave that up to other people. So in the meantime, it was just such a fascinating take on the consequence of not being informed in that space.
That's true. Well, think of something positive. Like Newsom and Trump are finally agreeing on something.
Oh, yeah, like that's positive. Yes, the Delta Tunnel got its federal biological opinions for construction. So Newsom, Trump this is like an accomplishment. It's my understanding. I listened to a presentation, I don't know, probably about 8 years ago, from someone at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on, how they comply with the Endangered Species Act. And she pointed out that it's not the agency's job to stop projects, as they don't really have the discretion to say, well, you can't build that project because we don't like it. It's going to be too impactful. I mean, that's not what they're there for. They're there to tell the agency how they can do their project with the least impact to whatever resources, fish, whatever it is. So it wasn't like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and NOAA Fisheries were ever going to say no. I mean, it's pretty much a sure thing. So we'll see. On we go with the Delta Tunnel. The bigger question is what's going on in the legislature. But hey, kind of some big news on the Colorado River, came up yesterday. 77% they think Arizona's going to be cut. 77% perhaps on their Colorado River water.
Maybe
Rob, get ready for some dry showers. That's all I'm saying.
I don't want to move again. I'm just finishing that today. I definitely don't want to do that. So I don't know.
Well, it's not like this is sneaking up on you.
No.
So you're all going to have to.
She's like, you knew what you were getting into.
Well,
the show is the water zone, okay? And we talk about water all the time. So what you do, you move to Arizona.
Well, I was already getting to agree to the 38%, but now that it's going to 70%, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, well, I think that's. I thought 40% given that these reservoirs are just about circling the drain, I was like, I'm thinking it's going to have to be more than that. So I was not surprised to see the 77%,
Well, maybe we should talk to those Tulare County farmers who are pumping like crazy.
No, don't talk to them. They don't want to talk to us.
It's like they feel it's like no tomorrow. They're just pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping and keep on going.
Yeah, and the reason why they're in this position to be able to do this is because they were all part of I think there were more than one GSAs in the basin, and they got put on probation, and the GSA for this area just fell apart. All the board members resigned, and it was over with. So they formed now a new GSA, but they aren't in any position yet to be able to cut back on pumping. I mean, they have to get a plan. They have to have, and people are saying, well, can you go back to what the other plan was that you had before, yet everything fell apart? Oh, no, can't do that. So they are able to sit there and keep pumping this groundwater. And this is actually really a big deal for the people that run the Bryant Kern Canal, because they have just paid hundreds of millions of dollars to fix this canal from subsidence. And now you have these people over here that are pumping away. And, there's no way that those farmers would be able to pay for the damage that they do to the Bryant Kern Canal.
Yeah.
They don't have hundreds of millions of dollars. So,
that's a crazy situation that's happening. I can tell you that. One of my favorite stories that you write about is the mussels. Now we got another mussel problem.
What's
happening with those guys? I'm sorry?
What's the new mussel issue?
It's in the Delta ecosystem. A bunch of invasive species coming in from Sacramento, San Joaquin, and it's a rigid mussel or something that's called like that. Have you heard about that?
I'm flipping to the thing, to the ad, yeah, because it's invasive species week, so they're
they got 200 different varieties of species that are coming there. Why don't we get like another Homeland Security thing, but maybe make it for the mussels, because they're coming like crazy.
There's only one kind of mussel that I like, and it's definitely not any sort of invasive species.
No.
Well, the problem is that this is what globalization does. The whole world, practically everywhere in this planet, is connected by water. I mean, we call the oceans the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, but there's not like a wall and all the molecules stay there. I mean, the water goes everywhere, and it goes up on, into the land and far inland. And, when you have boats, shipping from, global shipping, they come from one port and they suck up this ballast water,
yep.
Which is what they need to stabilize their vessels, and they go across the sea, and then they get into port, or they get close by, and they release their ballast water, and all these species of sorts come out. They try to get them to now release the ballast water, when they're farther out to sea, because the salinity in the middle of the ocean is higher, I guess, than it is at the edges, so they say. So those species won't be a problem there. But, that's where, ballast
Why don't they
water...
just drop it in the Salton Sea? It's salinity will kill those mussels real quick.
But ballast water is only one pathway. There's also, what's hanging on the outside of the boat. And if you got barnacles and other crap, and you're not keeping clean vessels, and not all these shipping lines do, you're just moving all this stuff around. And then, what really happens is then the recreational boaters pick it up, and now it's going all over the interior land now, too. So It's just a problem, and even the people in charge of dealing it will tell you it's not a matter of if, it's just when. And there just doesn't seem to be a way to stop it. Unfortunately.
I guess it's like the golden mussels. You can't eat those; they're just a pest.
Well, the golden mussels are becoming a terrible problem because they multiply so much faster than the quaggas or the other mussels that we're used to dealing with. And just the delta, given, where the delta is in San Francisco Bay and the international boating traffic in there. And there's also the deep ship channel, and vessels from, ocean-going vessels can go all the way up to Stockton. And they used to go to Sacramento, too. I don't think they use that port that much, but they sure do use the port of Stockton. So, again, you have the potential for these invasive species going very far inland. And it's not just, mussels. It's also plants, all types of submerged aquatic vegetation. A lot of it comes from people who dump out their aquariums. You're tired of having the aquarium, but you still got some living creatures, so you think you're doing a nice thing. You go out and you dump it out there in the delta, and what you actually do is introduce a whole bunch more invasive species. It's an incredibly pervasive problem.
Is that almost like those people on the East Coast who get these little baby alligators, and they get big and they just dump them off somewhere, and then you got a new crop growing?
Goldfish.
Yeah.
I mean, people have dumped goldfish in lakes, and they come out later and they're, monster size, salmon-sized goldfish, and they're invasive. Nobody really wants to have those around. So, yeah, invasive species.
When I was doing an irrigation association trade show, I was with Chris Beatty, and we had a new controller, a battery-operated irrigation controller that could work in water. It was completely submersible. So we thought a good idea was to put it in a large fish bowl, right? And so we were talking, and Chris said, maybe we should get some goldfish and put them in there. So they're swimming around, and people can see that it's submerged and all that. So we did that. And as the show was closing on the last day, some lady came up to me. She says, "What are you going to do with the goldfish?" What do you think I said?
Flush it?
Yeah, yes, I did. And she got so mad and vocal and yelling at me. She drew a crowd around me that I was going to kill 2 goldfish.
Oh.
It was bad. I don't want to kill a little animal, stuff like that. But
I know. I don't know. I do not know.
I don't eat goldfish. I don't know how they taste. I do eat sushi, but I don't know.
Oh, I eat goldfish. The cheddar ones are delicious.
Oh, yeah.
Smiles back, right?
That is true. So Chris, tell me about El Nino. Everybody's getting excited that we're going to see some rain.
Oh, well, not more than excited, more nervous. I think people are starting to get nervous. Here at El Nino, and, lots of chances it's going to grow to a big super El Nino. And super El Ninos generally tend to be more predictable, to bring more rain to California, but not always. We had one, 8 years ago, the big Godzilla El Nino that didn't do squat for California. So, things can always change, but yes, we're all excited / dreading what the season could bring. Hopefully, it will bring us, precipitation that fills our reservoirs but doesn't flood or kill anybody. But we'll see.
They still didn't refill that one in Los Angeles where they had the fires that they were complaining about?
They had a leak they had to replace something again. Like they did. They were doing maintenance. They fixed it up. They filled it up. Then they came across another problem. So they had to drain it to fix the problem. Large concrete reservoirs in earthquake country, can be a little bit problematic.
Yeah.
And we're talking DWP, so we're talking old system, basically. And they have to cover that reservoir too. So, there's a lot of work on that reservoir.
Tara, any danger of earthquakes up in your area? No hurricanes. But
Yes,
any earthquakes?
Yeah, so hilariously, we just had one not that long ago, and I felt it. I was like, this is my first earthquake in Ventura. It was a 3.5. It rocked my world. No, but it was nothing. But we do really have a lot of fault lines where we are, and what's one of the main concerns and why we have the Santa Felicia Dam Safety Improvement Project, because it has to qualify for a credible magnitude earthquake, which is in our area 7.2. So definitely have earthquakes. I've been here. We had the Northridge quake. That was not that far away. That was a major thing for us over here.
So your water agency is real in tune to what's happening with that.
Absolutely.
That's good to know. All right, well, we're going to take a little break. We got a good guest coming on, a featured guest I'm really excited about. I sent the stuff out to everybody to take a look at. But anyway, we're going to talk about...
Okay, so folks, he not only sent out, here's some things, but he was like, also, here's all these other really cool things. So he is very excited about today's guest, I just have to say.
I talked to this gentleman before, and I'm very excited. It's a subject I'd like to talk about. So, anyway, Ms. Osman, thank you for joining us again. And for our listeners, as always, go to maidensnotebook.com, become a subscriber. It's a great place to get all your water news every single morning, and I certainly read it and love it. And you can also, if you'd care to be a sponsor of that, it's a tax-deductible C3, is that correct?
501c3.
501c3. So it's a good way to get your head on straight to really what's happening and believe what Chris stays up all night typing up. So it's pretty good. So Chris, thanks a lot. We will see you and talk to you next week. You have a great week and a safe one.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
Good evening. I will take a little break here for a minute, a short break, and we're going to be back with our featured guest. So stick around the second half of the Water Zone. We'll be right back.
Growing your business isn't just hard work. It can feel like you're carrying it alone. But with Site One, we're in it with you, clearing roadblocks, simplifying decisions, and giving you the tools, products, and expertise to turn pressure into progress. Through every step, we help you keep momentum so growth doesn't just feel possible, it feels inevitable. Site One, we build Promentum.
KCAA.
Thanks for tuning into the Water Zone. We appreciate it. I'm Rob Starr along with Ms. Tara Mulally, and we are the host of the show, and we're glad you tuned in again. We have which you heard a minute ago. I'm very happy to have this person on. His name is Ike Levine, and he's a PhD. He's the CEO of the Algae Foundation. He's a professor emeritus at the University of South Maine, and he's also a Fulbright scholar, so he's certainly smarter than I am. But I'm glad I'm going to talk to him because I want to get a whole lot of information about algae. And I know that everybody has ideas about algae, what it is, what it does, what do you do with it, and all that. When I conjure up the thought of algae, I imagine a lake out in Florida with an alligator who comes up and he's slimed all over green from blue-green algae. So I want to get the real story on algae. So Dr. Levine, welcome to the Water Zone Show. We appreciate you calling in today.
Glad to be here.
Good. So just some silly questions at the beginning. How did you get interested in algae? What made you come to that?
Oddly enough, the answer is rugby. People go, wow, rugby. But
yes.
I was in medical school and wanted to play overseas and asked for 6 weeks off. And the dean said, "We want real well-rounded doctors. This is great, fantastic. But if you go play for the All-East team in England, don't come back." So I didn't. So I had to find something to do. And Cornell has a marine lab out in the Gulf of Maine. And I ended up on the Isle of Shoals. And all you can do is study algae or worms. And since I didn't want to do worms, 1976, 50 years ago, I started working on algae. And I've been doing it ever since.
Huh.
So, yeah. So tell me the most interesting facts that you've learned about algae in your time. Because I feel like that, like I didn't really get why it was compelling. It's so slimy.
Well, define algae for our listeners.
Yes, let's start there.
Okay. Well, algae are everywhere, and there are two main categories. Stuff you can't see individuals, so we call them microalgae or phytoplankton. And the big stuff that you see on the beach, or if you're in the, the giant macrocystis off the coast of California, the kelp. So we call them seaweeds or macroalgae. I started it in the seaweeds. In fact, in the 90s, I owned the largest seaweed farm, actually the largest algae farm in U.S. history. But my career goes back and forth between macro and micro, between owning companies and being a professor. And the weirdest thing in the world was my first job. And we got a call, my professor from Cornell got a call from the Central Park Zoo. The polar bear in the Central Park Zoo was turning green, and all the little kids were horrified.
What?
So John Kingsbury selected me to head on down to New York City, and we got to hang out for a week, and they put the polar bear to sleep, and it turns out the tips of polar bear hair is hollow, and when the water got too warm, little green algae slipped into the polar bear hair, and he turned green as, Kelly Green. And so
I bet it didn't happen during March. You could have just been like, "Oh, he's been touched by a leprechaun." Like, you could have really gone to town with that.
Or he could have been an Easter bear.
Easter bear.
Yeah. It was pretty fun, except the kids were really worried. And so it was real easy fix. Just lower the temperature and give him a bleach bath. And he turned white as snow, and all the kids were happily ever after. But algae's been really, really good to me and my family. It's taken me around the world. I've lived in India and Japan, worked in China, and it's been really exciting.
I found out that India has something called an algae tree.
The algae tree. Well, India has a tremendous amount of training programs for the coastal villages to earn extra money. And so they farm a lot of different kinds, but I'll have to admit, this is the first time I ever heard of the algae tree.
Oh, yeah. I was stationed. I wasn't in the military or anything. My previous job, I lived over there for a while, for 6 years. And it was I'd do 6 months there, then come back for a month to see my family, then go back. And I did that for 5 years, and five times in a row, and it was crazy. But I lived in near Mumbai and some other places, and Hyderabad, and I got to see some of the algae stuff. I was interested in that. But you know what makes, and you're the right person I got to ask this question. So, and you were studying medicine, so this is appropriate. How do scientists figure one day that, hey, I think a yellow frog has something that can cure something, and I'm going to go look for that? How does somebody in their mind think of those things? To go to some jungle and find something that it's going to cure somebody, and you go to like a yellow frog or a blue frog or some other animal or some plant, how do you think about those things? I mean,
this is what keeps Rob up at night, by the way. He wakes up in the middle of the night and goes like, "Why did somebody lick a frog?" I'm just telling you. I'm telling you now. So,
well, it's not a hard buy-in, and because for about at least 5,000 years, it's been written that we've always looked to nature for cure-alls. whether it's a bark branch or digitalis from the plant, or whether it's poisons to kill people. I mean, you experiment, and if you feel better, you do it again. If you die, well, you don't do it again. And so, natural products. I mean, a tremendous amount of our Western medicine comes from plants and invertebrates. And one of my first jobs in '85 or '86, National Institute of Health gave us $5 million to grow up 1,000 different algae, the microscopic kind, cyanobacteria, and extract valuable secondary metabolites and test them against cancer and AIDS. And so, and they did it for fish, they did it for invertebrates, they did it for land plants. And so we've been investigating the living world to help us survive forever.
So it's systemic over just like a one moment sort of light bulb effect, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Well, like you had medicine men or medicine women, and I
love that for us.
Well, yeah. I mean, they would extract things and add them to food or put them on, make stabs at them. And who would have ever thought that moss will prevent infections? I mean, somebody got a cut and someone got a cut and somebody put a bunch of moss on it and they felt better. So it became part of the folklore, and folklore medicine is the way medicine started.
No. My nephew was in the Navy, and they sent him to medical school, Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. And then after he returned to service, they sent him for a 3-month, not tour, but to go over in Asia and learn Eastern medicine. And he believes that natural, like Ebola and stuff like that, there's synthetic drugs that could help that, but he believes it's more natural stuff could subsidize that or subdue that. So it's pretty interesting. Tara's right. I stay up night thinking about stuff like this, but
but
look at maybe you can tell our audience all the benefits of algae, because people, they got algae in their pool or they got it on their fountain or something. They don't realize all the things you can do with algae.
Well, you're right. Algae has, one of the things from the Algae Foundation that we do with young people is try to turn algae from ick to awesome. And the reason, you have algae in your pool or your fish tank and you want to get rid of it. Or, you have red tide and you get all the slime, as you say, in Florida, little small Florida lakes. That's a problem. But on the other hand, I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath. So right now, take a really deep breath and hold it in. Hold it in. Okay, breathe it out. Well, now, thank the algae, because more than 50% of all the oxygen on this earth is produced by the algae. In fact, all the oxygen on this earth was originated about 2.5 billion years ago. The Great Oxidation Event was algae. Before that, we had no oxygen in the atmosphere, and life was very simple and much more inefficient. Tremendous
macroalgae can make a delicious snack, right? Huh?
Well, both micro and macroalgae can be fabulous in diet. When we were in Hawaii, Gourmet Magazine came out and did a big piece on my boss, and we cooked up half a dozen seaweed dishes that made it into gourmet, and so that was a lot of fun. But algae, you can eat it, you can drink it. It's an amazing source of vitamins. There's research now that algae is used to carry, chemotherapy drugs into the body more successfully. In fact, there's research out that an extract from a green algae from Japan can prevent COVID virus from successfully getting into human cells. So there's nutraceuticals, there's cosmeceuticals. You can get facial masks and get rid of your wrinkles or make your skin smoother.
Can you see through the phone? What is happening? I have no wrinkles. Leave them alone.
Well, if you need, I got plenty of algal masks I just brought back from China. Give me your address, and all your wrinkles will disappear.
You might not have a facelift, but get them all.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So I know we just talked about how we went from ick to inspirational. How did we deal with some of the algae that actually causes issues? So do you deal in sort of that world as well, like with our algal blooms that can cause some major issues in our waterways and reservoirs, or do you primarily focus on just the gloriousness of algae?
Well, it's funny. I do work on the positive side of algae, but all of the major blooms, whether the Great Sargassum Belt, which, if you've heard, Florida is being completely overrun by sargassum, so the beaches are feet thick, full of brown seaweed, and then of course both coasts have experienced the red tide. And where do these explosions of biomass come from? But excess nutrients. For instance, 50 million metric tons of brown seaweed are in the Atlantic right now, and a lot of it's being fed by the 300 million cows that are in the Amazon basin, and all that cow manure gets floated down the Amazon into the Atlantic. And off the coast of Florida, you have a tremendous amount of runoff from the farms, and all that nitrogen into the Indian River Basin is a major contributor to the blooms. So if you can, in fact, you can substitute and interfere with the red algal blooms by starting seaweed farms in the area, because the seaweeds will absorb the extra nutrients and prevent the bloom algae from getting it. So on one hand, you end up with a valuable product, and on the other hand, the nutrients that are sucked up by the massive farms can prevent the blooms from happening.
So the red tides that they have, like in San Diego, offshore, or down in Mexico, I guess is the better place for them. That I saw. How does that affect it? What is that just something that occurs and naturally goes away by itself, or can that be treated? Because I know that here you can't go in the water when you see that.
Well, again, many of the red tides are a type of algae called dinoflagellates, and they make different dinoflagellates make massive toxins. Some make mild toxins, but the reason they're always there, they're always present in the oceans. The problem is when the temperature goes up and the nutrient runoff goes up, you get a series of ecological factors that favor a bloom, and these bloom events can happen anywhere. They get into the shellfish. You got to stop eating them. They can cause secretaire or fish poisoning, so you can't eat the fish. So yeah, they're tremendously detrimental. They'll break up when they run out of nutrients, or the wind or tides will push them out to sea. So they're natural cycles that have been occurring forever. The only issue is there's more nutrients in the surface waters that feed the red tides.
So
the green tides.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you on that one.
I'm just saying there are many different kinds of algal blooms. In the Atlantic, it's a golden or brown tide. If you remember back in the Beijing Olympics, the green tide that almost prevented the sailing and the triathlons from occurring because Qingdao got covered in green algae. So it happens all over the world.
Mm-hmm. So they basically can absorb really heavy metals or radionuclides and all that? I mean, that's just a natural...
Yep. Algae are super duper absorbers. So if you grow algae in polluted water, the algae itself will be polluted. In fact, in the 60s, nori for sushi bars used to be grown in Tokyo Bay. But they found out that the nori, the sheets that were grown in Tokyo Bay, were full of nickel and molybdenum and strontium. And so they stopped farming algae in the polluted Tokyo Bay. And so, again, algae grown near Fukushima in Japan, because of the radioactive water being discharged, is absorbed by the algae. So any algae that's imported into the United States after Fukushima, before we sell it, we have it tested for radionuclides, and thankfully, none have shown up in the algae that's imported from China, Korea, or Japan.
That's pretty interesting. I was going to ask. So when you take a look at your products, or not your specific products, but things that are made from that, I also understand they're using some as fuel.
Well, again, biofuels is not a new concept. We've used biofuels in U.S.-based gasoline made out of corn, ethanol. You've heard of that, and so
right.
Bioethanol is corn. Algae theoretically can make fuel hundreds of times more efficiently, and certainly more sustainably than land-based farm products. The problem is, of course, cost. And can you do it cheap enough? And so they've been working for the last 20 years to lower the price. In the beginning, a price of algal-based biofuel or biodiesel or biojet fuel was over $30 a gallon. Now they got...
Oh, so we're getting there soon. The equivalent will be there, like next year, right? I mean, we'll be paying $30 a gallon.
Well, you guys are a lot more expensive than Maine gasoline. I can imagine spending what you guys spend on gasoline.
I know. I'm like, how hard to get $7 a gallon?
Go down to a local park and pick up some algae and throw it in your tank.
Well, it's reasonably easy to make biofuels from or biodiesel from algae laden with lipids, and so we're getting down to around $2.25 a gallon. Now the only problem is you got to build a farm large enough to reach commercial scales, and there is a farm being built in the mid-coast of California, a company called Global Algae. They've got the technology, I believe, to do a great job. And once they show that it's commercially viable, there'll be an explosion of algal-based farms. California leads the United States in the Imperial Valley. You have Earthrise, and they're a massive microalgae farm. They grow spirulina. I'm sure you're familiar with that, a superfood. And Hawaii also has a very large microalgal spirulina farm. But New Mexico is a great place to grow microalgae, as is Texas.
I remember a couple of years ago I met a lady that worked for, I think, the first one you just mentioned up in California, and they were doing cosmetics and vitamins.
Yep.
And they were telling me about the brand. That's when I first met somebody from that industry, and I got really, it was just very fascinating to me because I don't come from that part of the world. I mean, subject. I mean, I'm electronics and physics, but I love science and all these things. I always feel that, people say this is bad or this is bad. That why don't they think opposite of that? How can they make it better? It's like brine from fracking. I've been doing some radio shows with ConocoPhillips and some other companies, a consortium out of University of New Mexico. And what do you do with the brine when you pull it up? So they're mining it for lithium. They're mining it for magnesium. And so what turns out to be bad can also be useful. Just what you're saying, just like algae. And
absolutely. And there's a whole new generation of products. For instance, surfboards are now being made by algae. Beach shoes, and in fact, the reason they're so fabulous is they're biodegradable. Think of the fact that, I've been on islands that no humans have lived on, and at the high tide mark, there's plastic 1 to 2 feet thick of soda bottles and six-pack rings, and it's devastating. And you've all heard of the great plastic gyro off the coast of California.
Right.
And so biodegradable plastic. Biodegradable plastic. So if you're a flip-flop, landed on a beach 6 months later, it'd be gone. It's not breaking up because it's brittle and forming nanoplastics. It's biodegrading. And so it's a remarkable advancement. And we're just so happy to support that. The Department of Energy has supported the Algae Prize, and the last winner of the Algae Prize from University of California at San Diego created an enhanced algae that naturally releases biodegradable plastic molecules. And so these are wonderful technologies that come through the Algae Prize contest. And so it's amazing what young people can do when they're given the opportunity to use their imagination and the skills that they've learned to create great new technology.
That's amazing.
So what have some of our animal friends learned about algae that we still don't necessarily know about algae? I hear that some of our animal friends use it really creatively, and I can't wait to hear it.
Well, first of all, algae is the basis of the entire marine food chain. So everything you've ever eaten from the ocean or a lake started as algae. So there are no exceptions. So everything starts with the primary producer, algae, in the aquatic world. So that's first thing. Whales love algae. Whales love algae not only to eat, but they use it as a loofah. And algae has great characteristics for whale skin. Not only does it help with
whale skin care and human skin care, same.
Absolutely. And so it's a marvelous. It creates habitat. So even in the great blooms, you have dozens of exotic species that have evolved inside in the Sargasso Sea. So you have Sargasso eels and Sargasso crabs, and that live just there. So they're breeding grounds. They protect the turtles. So they're the ability of algae, whether micro or seaweeds, to live in concert with all the animal world, zooplankton all the way up to blue whales. You can't have one without the other. Especially, algae creates the oxygen in the ocean. It creates the oxygen in the atmosphere. And so where would we be if we didn't have, half of all the oxygen in the earth? We'd be in a pickle.
Well, I think we were talking earlier on the phone, but where's the craziest place you collected algae?
The craziest place that I've ever collected algae, there's a few volcanoes.
What?
Yellowstone Park in the hot, the smelly sulfur pots. I collect them in icebergs. Those are great places to collect algae because you never know when you're having a graduate student party and you tip off some, green or red ice and bring it back, and you never had a gin and tonic so good when you use lake algae ice. So that's
Are you like algae's brand manager? I'm just questioning.
And do you need a new assistant? I'm volunteer for that.
But they also make reasonably good kelp beer. They make fabulous kelp gin. So if you're ever in British Columbia, go into any liquor store, they have kelp gin there. It is spectacular.
I heard they make pickles.
Oh, yes. Pickles and noodles and kimchi. Kelp kimchi is pretty darn good. But the weirdest places the polar bear was a pretty cool place. I've collected it from the mouth of moray eels and the mouth of pythons in Thailand. Where else? There's cloud algae.
Well, I got to tell our listening audience that they should check some of the videos that you have out on YouTube. They're incredible and very educational. And your organization does a lot, with the STEM programs and stuff like that. You must. I can tell by your voice. You really enjoy what you're doing, and that's a good job to have.
Well, again, my daughter said I used to be a nerd, but now I'm cool because algae's cool. So from nerd to being cool via algae. But the foundation is probably the last great thing I ever do. It's it's a group of algal zealots that have spent their lifetime, and now that we have some extra time, we've reached almost 400,000 students in 114 countries and all 50 states, where again we're taking STEM education, using algae as a way to get young people to really consider taking up STEM careers, because young people in the first, second, third grade love science, but somehow by the time they get to the mid to end of high school, it's really a low percentage that are thinking about STEM. And yeah, it could be, but sometimes having fresh and exciting hands-on learning experience like our Algae Academy, it really gets people excited. And so, we deal with grade school, middle school, high school, community colleges. We have courses in graduate school and the university system. Fresno State, UC San Diego is a big proponent of our curriculum. And we also have online through Coursera and on our website. So if you're interested in algae, just have to go to thealgaefoundation.org or our secondary website, Algae Foundation ATEC, that's ATEC.org. And we have online extension courses. Everything we do is free of charge, including we give away microscopes to schools that can't afford them. We send all the algae free of charge to all the schools, and last year we did over 800 schools and 70,000 students. So it's we have a great team working all around the country to algae.
Amazing. But personal question: did your daughter ever freak out that you were going to feed her something and make her turn green?
Well, the weird part is, my whole family is really adventurous. So my kids have been eating algae since they're 3 and 4 years old, and it turns out my dogs love it, and that created another business opportunity, because we would put an algae mix together and sell it to the Westminster Kennel Club owners of those dogs, because it would increase the sheen of their fur and make them more attractive. And so for many years, we had a large following at the high-end dog shows. And then it turned out there are a lot of private zoos in this country with big cats. And we created a supplement to the sausage that private butchers sell around the country to feed big cats. And so we made algal-based sausages for leopards, for lions, for tigers. And my deal with them was, as long as I get to feed one of them. And so in New Jersey, I got to feed a really large leopard, one of our products. And let's just say I kind of count all my fingers when I was done with that effort.
Awesome. Well, we got to turn the radio show over to NBC NewsHour, because they're the big guys who take care of us. And I enjoyed talking to you, and I want to talk to more about you at another time. And I do appreciate you coming on the show today and informing us about algae. And thank you very much. And we'll give you a call back in a couple of days and talk about second chance of coming back. Not a chance. You're more than welcome to come and talk about this. I love this subject. It's interesting. So thank you.
Algal Zealots is the name of my new band. I'm just saying.
Okay. Well, we got to go. NBC's getting ready to pull us off. So
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Doctor. And remember,
have a great night. Appreciate it.
And remember, if you like green,
You gotta have blue.
all right, thanks, people. We will talk to you next week. Have a good evening. And remember, try some algae this weekend. Let us know how it is. All right.
KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932.